6 Mindset Shifts to Overcome the Need for External Validation. This is written by John Emanuel and printed in Tiny Buddha. Simple wisdom for complex lives. Relying on external validation to understand your worth is not sustainable. If you depend on people who build you up, you also give them the same power to break you down. You are worthy regardless of their opinion. Unknown. In my heart of hearts, I knew I wasn't supposed to rely on others for validation, yet for the longest time I found myself seeking external approval to define my worth. I was constantly seeking reassurance from friends, family, and even strangers. The validation became the measure of my self-esteem, leaving me trapped in a cycle of doubt and insecurity. I had several achievements under my belt, yet the accolades and praise never felt quite enough. The need for external validation consumed me, overshadowing my sense of accomplishment and robbing me of genuine pride in my achievements. It seemed like I had the best job and everyone admired my success, and despite the external validation pouring in, there were emptiness within me, a hollowness that reminded me that I was seeking validation in all the wrong places. I had a nagging feeling that something was amiss. But was it the right thing? Is doing anything in life out of a desperate need for validation truly fulfilling anyway? Interestingly enough, not only I know I didn't want to rely on external validation, but deep down I also knew that those who constantly sought validation were often less fulfilled. I was one of those individuals who would sacrifice their own desires to gain the approval and validation of others, and it became clear that this dependence on external validation was holding me back from true self-acceptance and happiness. So why did I continue down this path? Why did I keep seeking validation from others when I knew deep down that it wasn't serving me? And most importantly, how can one overcome this toxic need? Before I get to the mindsets required to overcome the need for external validation, let's talk about the mindsets that will almost certainly lead to a dependence on external validation. See, it's often better to figure out what to avoid first instead of trying to navigate through a maze blindly. I know, because these are all mistakes I've made myself. Mindsets that lead to dependence on external validation. 1. The pursuit of perfection. For the longest time, I couldn't escape the allure of perfection. I always had to strive for flawlessness, believing it was the key to validation. But the truth is, perfection is an illusion. It sets an unrealistic standard and creates an insatiable need for external validation. We develop a flawless mindset because we're driven by the fear of being judged or rejected. However, it hinders self-acceptance and prevents us from embracing our authentic selves. 2. Fear of failure. Fearing failure is closely linked with seeking external validation. That's the trap we fall into. We perceive failure as a reflection of our worthiness. We think that just because we've stumbled, we're somehow lesser, and we don't recognize that we can learn and grow from failure because we're too afraid of what other people will think. 3. Comparison trap. Seeking validation and comparison leads to a never-ending cycle of frustration. For me, it was having an incessant need to be better than others. For others, it's simply being acknowledged as equal. Some might siphon validation through getting more social media likes or job promotions than their peers. Whenever we seek validation through comparison, it tends to be a trap. 4. Seeking approval from everyone. Even though I don't always love being a people pleaser, seeking approval from everyone and sacrificing my own needs and desires became ingrained in my identity. Then, when the realization hit, I found myself having to build a new life based on my own values and aspirations. Had I established an identity of wholeness rather than seeking universal approval, I wouldn't have fallen into the trap of constantly trying to please everyone. External validation is a measure of self-worth. You should get that promotion, those accolades, and the approval of others. Living on external validation is the only way to measure your self-worth, right? Well, you should have a constant stream of praise to feel good about yourself, but you shouldn't. You know the tropes, but here's the truth. External validation can never truly define your worth, and you're the only one who can recognize and embrace your inherent value beyond others' opinions. 6. Neglecting inner reflection. I was caught up in seeking external validation for so long because I didn't know who I was. But in the wake of countless disappointments, I completely gave up on that approach. For months, I quit searching for approval and turned inward. I got more and more in touch with my values, my passions, and my true self. It's only through putting ourselves first and nurturing self-awareness that we can cultivate a strong foundation of self-validation. So what mindset can help you overcome the need for external validation? I can't give you any definitive answers because I don't know you. I'm not a psychology or mental health expert. This is the author, actually I am. But just a guy who's tried, failed, lived, failed, and done it all over again. So just like I've given you insights about what not to do based on my personal experience, I'm going to give you some insight based on the way I'm living my life now. 1. Embracing imperfections. Every experience I have now is an opportunity for growth. I do my best not to strive for perfection, but rather to embrace imperfections as part of being human. I don't feel sour about my flaws. Instead, I see them as stepping stones to becoming a better version of myself. I try to look at outcomes as lessons rather than measures of my worth. Instead of using external validation as a benchmark, I become more focused on self-acceptance and personal growth. You can't experience true growth without embracing imperfections. They operate on different ends of the same spectrum and wavelength, shaping us into resilient individuals. If you try to avoid imperfections, you deny yourself the opportunity to learn, evolve, and ultimately become your authentic self. 2. Self-defined success. That doesn't mean I don't care about the opinions of others, but I'm not going to construct an identity around their validation. I'm focused on living a life that aligns with my values and aspirations. I'm more than welcome to let people into that experience, and of course their support and encouragement are valuable. But I'm no longer going to chase external validation or base my self-worth on it. And I'm not going to analyze every comment or reaction as though they're saying something about who I am. The goal is to be true to myself, to find my own success and find fulfillment from within. Authenticity and vulnerability. I feel no pressure to present a curated version of myself for validation. I could easily mold my image to fit societal expectations, but it just doesn't matter. I don't go on a quest for likes and approval. I just do me unapologetically. This isn't a mindset I'm using for personal gain. It's about living authentically. I now embrace authenticity and vulnerability as strengths and prioritizing self-expression over seeking validation from others. It's a path of courage, growth, meaningful connections, resilience, and living with integrity. 4. Internal validation practice. I learned how to validate myself, who I am, what I enjoy, and my values, because I realized that seeking validation from others was an endless pursuit. I could never control how others perceived me. I also took time to acknowledge and celebrate my own accomplishments. I took the approach that everything in my life, both big and small, deserved recognition. Moving forward, my attitude shifted towards self-appreciation and recognizing my worthiness independent of external validation. This is a never-ending process, and it's also the most useful process for self-empowerment, self-compassion, intrinsic motivation, balanced self-perception, and authentic self-acceptance. 5. Constructive self-talk. I've had moments of insincerity where I portrayed a persona that didn't align with my true self, leading to feelings of dissonance and self-deception. I've also spent a lot of time criticizing myself, doubting my worth and capabilities, without realizing I was viewing myself through a distorted lens. Moving forward, I've decided I'm going to be honest about who I am, no more pretending to be someone I'm not. And I'll no longer lie to myself about my worth. That's the biggest part. replacing criticism with self-compassion and encouragement. However, fostering a mindset of positive and constructive self-talk is essential for nurturing self-esteem and self-acceptance. 6. Embracing supportive relationships. The irony is that we often hide who we really are so other people will validate our worth, but how can they if they don't truly know us? We might also try hard to seek validation from people who are unable or unwilling to give it. None of us can do life alone, but instead of changing to please others or fighting for approval from the wrong people, we all need to surround ourselves with supportive and uplifting individuals who will value and appreciate us just for who we are. So what do you do with these pieces of advice? I suggest you analyze them, discard the ones that don't resonate with you, and keep the ones that do. The important thing is that you see what mindsets are guiding your life and release the ones that aren't serving you so that you can be free and present, not controlled by other people's opinions and the endless pursuit of validation.